The Backdoor GAA Podcast for 2023 is now brought to you by Steede Motor Group. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, visit steedemotorgroup.ie. We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job. So delighted now to be joined by David Wynne, and hopefully we'll have Barry Cullinane in the next few minutes as well. Just to look back on Galway's win over Monaghan at the weekend, 113 to 10 points. It finished on a final scoreline. Firstly, David, delighted to have you on. Been a while now since you finished up with Mike Cullen. Last time we were talking, I was talking to you on a podcast, you were county champions, but as the year progressed, did it give you time over Christmas to kind of look back on what you achieved?
It wasn't even Christmas, really, to be honest. We were preparing for Glen at that stage. But yeah, we had our first team meeting there Wednesday night. We're going back on the pitch this evening. So we've had a nice break now, nearly 2.5 months. You know, we've kind of taken stock of what we did and what we didn't do, and ready to go again now.
Was there any regrets after the Glen game, or was it just you were kind of able to say to yourself, like, at the same time we did reach an All-Ireland semi-final?
Bit of both. I think, look, anytime you lose a game, there's going to be regrets, you know, and I don't think we put our best performance out there. You know, we didn't really show exactly what we're capable of, and the whole group knows that. So it's good, you know, because there's a fire lit again for this year. We do feel like we left something behind us. So yeah, there was we reviewed the Glen game. We've looked back on it, parked it, taken a couple of things that we need to improve on, and we'll try and bring them forward now into this year's championship.
Just with that, you've been talking about Mike Cullen and the success, but like when you consider, like, you've played intermediate club football for Mike Cullen and now you're becoming a senior powerhouse, but 9 players in the Galway senior football panel from when you started out playing football. For a lot of the, I suppose, younger lads in the squad, it wouldn't be surprising with, I suppose, the amount of players you've had in underage Galway squads. But do you look at that ever and go, Jesus, like, this is crazy?
Not so much crazy, but it's a massive achievement, you know, and it's something that as a club we're really, really proud of. There's Barry jumping in there now. But yeah, no, it's something that as a club and as a group we're really, really proud of. I wouldn't say crazy because, you know, everyone who's in there deserves to be in there. You know, they've worked really hard. The talent is there. They you know, performed when they had to perform in the shop window, essentially, which is the either underage or in the Galway Club Championship. So yeah, it's great for us as a club, and it's only going to bring on the lads that aren't involved up another level. You know, when we get them boys back in terms of, you know, the knowledge they pick up inside in Galway and then training on the pitch, it's yeah, it leaves us in a good position. Not for the league, but going forward, yeah, absolutely.
And just for you and Barry in there, David, like you mentioned the league there briefly, like they're already coming back, but I'm sure, like, it was a very long campaign for you. I'm sure that break has been nice to, I suppose maybe just zone out and kind of come back refreshed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. 2.5 months now. Had a really, really good break. Honestly, I don't know how the boys went back in with Galway after 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it was they did. I don't think I would have been able to do that now mentally. So yeah, no, it's impressive what they're doing and continuing to do. But now I think after, you know, you get your 2 months or your 2.5 months and you're ready to go again. You know, there's a good buzz down at the meeting Wednesday night. We're back on the pitch now tonight, and everyone is looking forward to getting on a pitch and kicking a ball again, I think.
And same management team again for you?
Same again, yeah. Same again.
I don't know, do we have you there now, Barry? He just doesn't seem to be there yet. But Galway so far, David, what have you made of them?
I've been impressed, to be honest with you, and especially last Sunday against Monaghan. I know I've read a couple of pieces, and they're impressed with the second half. Personally, I was really impressed with the first half, the way they defended. Their structure seems to be really, really good. Management, they had it in place last year, and they seem to have brought it forward, which is great. There's a bit of continuity, and it seems like every day they go out, they're trying to refine it and improve it. They seem to have put a massive emphasis on protecting the D. They're not giving up any simple goal scoring opportunities. I think they've conceded 2 goals, one against Mayo, one against Donegal, which was a penalty, and they were both. The one against Mayo was kind of a freak goal, if anything. They're not giving up those simple chances of players breaking through the arc and popping the ball over to someone coming through the middle. So, really, really impressive. It's going to give them a great base to work from going forward. And I think they're going to be in every game. They're not going to leak heavy scores. And then if they can get the transition right, they're capable of beating anyone.
How are you, Barry? We just have you now as well. Barry, we're just talking on Galway so far. David talks there about their structure, in particular against Monaghan. In the first half, been going a point down, but in that second half in particular, they really did limit Monaghan. I think I'm not sure that Monaghan even registered a score from playing that second half, but they really made it difficult for Monaghan to break down Galway.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me all right there, can you?
Yeah.
How are you, Barry?
How are you, David? How are you? Yeah, look, I think, media and supporters and everyone, we do have and I'll be as guilty as anyone, a tendency maybe to analyse kind of the micro side of a league. So analysing each half or analysing each game. And, at halftime in the Roscommon game, it was like the weight of the world on our shoulders. Full time at the Tyrone game, it was only a matter of time before, getting to the All-Ireland final. Half time against Monaghan, maybe not so good. So there's a trend to these things that we get overexcited, and we look at how we're playing when we're really positive, and we're too negative when maybe a half doesn't go our way. So, he will have been happy with that half, but as a management team, when they set down at the start of the league, there's certain parameters that they wanted to meet, and they can only judge that really at the end of the league. But so far, they're touching an awful lot of those points. And David is right on the structure side of things, and defensively, we're getting things spot on, and our top players have carried form through. So Sean Kelly, following a brilliant year, and as David said, I don't know how he's still going. He's some operator and some leader on that team, and he has been the rock that we're building our full back line on. John Daly is coming back into a brilliant vein of form, and we're not conceding scores. So I think on average Tyrone got 13 points, but Monaghan got 9 the last day. I think Roscommon got 9. Donegal got 1-9. So we're only conceding about 10 scores, which if you continue that into the championship, that puts you in a brilliant position to try and go win a game. And then offensively, we're not getting as many scores as we'd like, but that's not really surprising. If you don't have Damien Comer as one of the top forwards in the country, Shane Walsh just coming back, Rob Finnerty just coming back, Patrick Kelly, who had a brilliant year last year. So 4 of your forwards that showed absolutely brilliant form last year, and 3 of them, Patrick Kelly had a brilliant year, but you would say Rob Finnerty, Damien Comer and Shane Walsh are 3 of the top forwards in the country, and you take them out of your team, then you're not going to score enough. Or you're not going to score as much, and that's just the way it is. So I think overall they're in a really, really good position, and when they sit down at the end of the league, they'll be happy with a lot of the key performance indicators that they were looking for at the start of it. they'll think they've met. I would imagine.
And just with that, Barry, even in the first half, went in 9-8 down, but the most pleasing aspect, you could say, even going in a point down, like they were really limiting Monaghan to scores from distance.
Yeah, and I think Rory Beggan got a couple of frees as well, but that's that's not just last Sunday, Paul. That's Galway's modus operandi right now. They're really, really good defensively, and if you get a score against Galway, you're going to earn it. And they're all supremely confident in their system. Everybody knows their role. It doesn't matter who's coming in or who comes out. Everyone adapts. And when you think about it, they don't have Liam Silk, they don't have Ciara Malloy, who would have had huge experience from last year. And one of the really pleasing points for Pádraig is that Owen Kelly has come a bit like the manner born to it, really. It has come so naturally to him. He looks like he has nailed down that position that Liam Silk has vacated, unless David has a brilliant league or something for Mike Cullen. He might pop back. He might pop back into that role. There's probably still vacancy at that left half back spot. I think Daniel Flaherty for me is in pole position. I think he's a really, really good footballer. Carl Sweeney will push him all the way in. It goes to show you the strength that Saltil Knocknacarra have at the moment. But Paul Conroy pulling the strings around midfield. Killy McDade didn't start the last day, but everybody in there, that defensive unit, are two wing forwards. They all know their role really, really well. And one thing for me really standing out for Galway this year is they're limiting the amount of frees teams get. So they're really disciplined in the tackle. There's no one doing anything stupid. There's no one leaving a hand in when it doesn't need to be. And it looks like something that they've really, really worked on over the winter months.
Yeah, I noticed that as well, Barry, and it's nearly the way they're tackling inside the 45. It's all open palm stuff, and they're all really like hyper aware that they've got backup, so if someone does get half a yard on them, it's nearly hands up over the head. I'm not going to reach in and give a foul because I know I have backup coming in behind me. So it's really, really hard to get a score from the D, essentially, which has been really impressive. What'll be interesting is if teams, the better teams, the better kicking teams, would say Armagh or Kerry, start picking off long range scores, will they, will Galway come out to the periphery to try and put pressure as the year goes on? But I suppose those questions will pose themselves and we'll see what they do. But at the minute, they're extremely hard to get a score against, which is what you want, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think they will. I think they'll accept the fact that, the team, you said Armagh or Kerry or Mayo or whoever they play, they might get a couple of scores, but how many actually will they get? You're never going to see 9-10 points from distance in a game. If Galway could keep their defensive structure and Armagh or Kerry got three scores, 4 scores from distance, they'd accept that and they'd move on. That would be my perception of it anyway.
Yeah.
With that as well, like there's challenges in that Monaghan game, David in particular, going down to 14 men with Peter Cook getting sent off, and the most impressive thing is probably just to find that way, and in the end to find that way comfortably, you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. I was disappointed for Peter because I thought he was actually really coming into the game. He was putting in good tackles. He just kicked a great score. And I think that second half would really have suited him. With the breeze, he might have been able to pick off 2 or 3 long-range scores, which he's been doing all year. Which he'll dust himself off and he'll be ready to go again when he gets his next chance. But in terms of setup after that, yeah, they were really good. And it's because they get everyone behind the ball. They could probably do it with 13, to an extent. Now, they did have the wind helping them, which I think was a big factor. There was a swirling wind in Saltil. So in order for Monaghan to get a score, they had to focus on getting the ball right into the D. And I thought Johnny Heaney was super. Shawnee was really good. And John Daly, they were just directing traffic. They weren't getting pulled and dragged out to the sidelines. They were manning the danger areas really, really well. So, yeah, it was impressive the way they coped with the man being sent off. Yeah, absolutely.
Barry, you talked about Owen Kelly's form, but since those forwards have got injured, it's safe to say like Matthew Tierney has really stepped up to the plate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd have to put my hands up. I questioned Matthew's form. I thought last year's really long year, not just last year's, but the last couple of years in his run with Uachtarard and then Galway 20s, NUIG, and Galway seniors. I thought it had taken a lot out of him and possibly wasn't showing the levels of energy that we had expected to see of him, considering the huge potential that he has. But as you said, it could be a situation where he now feels that without the lads playing, that he is probably Galway's number one forward, and he has really risen to that. And you know, the turning point of the Tyrone game, where him coming, like, he's a massive man, him coming and taking those two marks and us getting scores from that. And I think that's where I think he took huge confidence from that, and I think he pushed on from that. And it was kind of in the last 20 minutes of the Tyrone game, he really expressed himself against Donegal. He was outstanding, and he was really good the last day too. So the challenge for Matthew, and the Galway management will be putting that to him, is when Shane comes back, when Damien comes back, you cannot go hiding. And not that he was hiding, but he was probably being overshadowed by Shane coming looking for ball, by Rob coming looking for ball, by Damien coming looking for ball, and possibly Matthew just wasn't getting as many possessions as he would have liked. And I think that'll be the challenge, that we spread the load among the forwards, and that no one forward is dominating our play, because you see what happens in teams then shut down one or two of these guys, and it becomes very difficult for someone else to come into the game. So they'll be delighted for Matthew himself personally, because we know what he has in his locker, and it's brilliant that he's now expressing himself and showing that. But as you said, Paul, like, the challenge now for him is keep going, and when the likes of Gavin White picks him up against Kerry or someone like that, he's going to have to show that this is his year. And please God, it'll be Matthew Tierney that takes the limelight this year, on top of Shane and Damien and Patrick Kelly or whoever else is there.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think Barry makes a great point. There's a massive difference to being the focal point of an attack and being kind of on the peripheries, the third or fourth best player, and trying to chip in with 2 or 3 scores. But I think Matthew, in fairness, I've seen a lot of him now, and this year he seems to have gone away and worked on a couple of small things that would make a huge difference at inter-county level. Score he kicked the last day against Monaghan, really smart. He was just jogging out to the 45 line as if he was coming on the loop, and then a real quick back check. So just centre back was right up behind him, checked right back. Robert Finnerty, really quick hands into Matthew, and he had an easy score right in front of the goal.
What are those small things, David, that you think he's worked on?
So that small movement. So rather than coming out and trying to win, soft ball and going back around, working on the loop, trying to take on a man, literally jogging out at half pace to the 45. And then what you see Conor Callahan doing all the time, that quick check right back in. He did that brilliantly. Lost the centre back. Robert Finnerty found him with a hand pass, and he floated it over the bar. And if he could get 2 of those a game when it gets to championship, that'll really help Galway scoring prowess.
Lads, the biggest talking point from the weekend seems to be simulation in the game at the minute. And Barry, there probably is an incident going around. David's smiling here now, but
Barry, you take this now, will you?
I'd say half of my Cullen will be watching this so I better be very careful. I think, to be honest now, and this isn't a maroon tinted glass, like, I would say Peter Cook was probably, just to show my lack of my Cullen or Galway bias, like, I'd say Peter would have been very disappointed and probably could have no complaints over what happened at the weekend. But in terms of the covers that Sean Kelly is getting, I think it's criminal, to be honest. Like, he actually did, we don't know where, like, your man, I don't know what Monaghan fellow was, actually did catch
Kieran
him.
Duffy.
There's no doubt he caught him with a fist into the ribs. We don't know, Dave, like, Sean Kelly could have a rib injury. Like, we don't know that, and that's why
Yes, correct. Could have been a chest cramp.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that, like, I saw the Connor Cox one on Matthew Ruan, like that was really, really poor form by him. Like Sean Kelly doesn't do that, and he's not that sort of player. So like to be highlighting him, I don't think that's fair. I think it's a bit unjust. I do think we have an issue with it. I do think we have an issue with it. I do think we have an issue in terms of the black cards. I'm not saying we shouldn't have the black card, but I think players are probably trying to get guys tangled up in legs and showing that they go down a little bit too easy. How do we stamp that out? Nigh on impossible, really. Like, in fairness to the refs, we all have, replays and Sunday game and everything. They have to call it literally as they see it, and if they don't see it, they can't call it. And if they see it a different way to we see it, that's fair enough. And then some people are talking about, a video ref or a VAR type experience, but like Gaelic games and particularly Gaelic football is so objective in that, like, what I would see as a free, someone else mightn't see as a free, because we don't have a defined tackle, we don't have a defined set of rules. So what one ref sees as a black card, one ref mightn't see as a black card, and it just gets really, really confusing. But I think responsibility at the end of the day comes down to players and management, and if they encourage it, then that's their prerogative. But I think most senior managers would be a bit embarrassed if one of their players did. Particularly, said the Connor Cox one was a bit silly on his behalf. Is that all right, David? That covered the party.
Perfect. Yeah, no, perfect. I know. Look, Shawnee's a fierce competitor. You know what I mean? He's as honest a guy and honest a player as there is out there. So I don't think, from him personally, and with Galway, I don't think it's an issue. I don't think it's something you're going to see going forward across the whole of the GAA. Yeah, look, I know there's been a bit of a Twitter storm over it, and I'm sure everyone involved will have seen it, and maybe that'll be enough to kind of say, okay, look, we can't be doing these things. Management might have a discussion, a quick word, 10 seconds of a word this week before training, but I don't think it's a pandemic, essentially. You know what I mean? I don't think it's something that we really need to hone in on, focus on. I think as we get into as we move closer to the summer, I can't see it being an issue.
And what's your view on the actual incident, David?
I think Shawnee was showing great leadership. He was trying to take the media attention off Peter Cook, so it was a real selfless act, really. I know, look, like, when you slow down the video, it doesn't look great. But as Barry said, there is contact there, and like I said, I know Shawnee, he's an honest player, honest guy as there is. So I don't think there was any malicious intent in it. And it's not something that we'll need to worry about going forward.
Yeah, like, even if you go back to Sean's reaction against Armagh last year, like, this isn't a fella that goes down. He went down because he was hurt. Like, I would be, there's a few players that I might question that
yeah,
mightn't have been as if they went down, you might question whether they actually felt it or not. But like, Sean Kelly is certainly not one of them.
Absolutely. And I think, it's a broader discussion, but that the character assassination that happens on Twitter in the immediate aftermath of an incident, when it's slowed down on a video, that's not right either.
Is there anything that can be done about that, David? Like, I know probably the way it is, I'd say probably a lot of players are not on Twitter and stuff, because just as you talk, like, even if you're Connor Cox there or Sean Kelly, like, and you're looking and it's 1,000 comments and it's going into different threads and various people are being tagged.
Yeah, look, it's wrong. I know. Look, I don't know. Barry might have a better opinion on this than me. I'm not the man to fix it. I just know it's wrong. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. The lads are out there representing their clubs or their counties. They're amateurs at the end of the day, and I just think it's wrong when certain podcasts or people on Twitter are basically going after an individual's character over something they've done in 3 seconds in the heat of a moment.
I think it's look, there's a lot of clickbait out there as well, and it's usually the same fellas that are doing it every Sunday evening. They'll find something to try and get their name out there, and that's fine, and fair play to them. Absolutely no issue with that. But again, the responsibility, like players, comes back to people responding to it. If you can see every Sunday evening the same fella is finding one person or particular incident to get himself trending on Twitter, just ignore it. Like, he's not doing it for the good of your health. He's not doing it for the good of the GAA. The only thing he's doing it for is to get people engaged with him, to try and create a little bit more money in advertising. So don't get fooled into it that you think that some fella is trying his damnedest to wrong or right all the wrongs of the GAA. They certainly are not.
But with that, David, it's fair to say there is some simulation creeping into the game. And is it this thing where management will go to players, if you do feel contact and it's minimal, go down?
No, I don't think so. There's too much going on as an inter-county manager for that to be anywhere close to the top of your priority list. They're working on defensive structures, how to get scores, how to manage games, other things. That's not a conversation that happens. I think with this small bit of backlash this weekend, there might be a word in dressing rooms across the country. Just, don't be going down at the, if someone blows on you, essentially. That might be a 10 or 15 second conversation, but that'll be it. I think it's more, as Barry said, big bait, people looking for attention. Your Sean Kelly's, your Conor Cox's, management around the country, they're not going to be concerned themselves too much with it. Their focus is on winning games and getting to championship, essentially.
And David, just we'll bring Barry in on this as well, but the definition of the tackle at the moment, some refs allow contact, some refs go kind of halfway between contact and not, and then some refs, if there's any contact at all, they'll blow. Like, is that frustrating as a player that basically in the game there's not really a clearly defined tackle?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It is a frustration, and I found it. I found it especially prevalent when I was in with Galway and I was coming back to play with my Cullen. You know what I mean? It seems like the tackle is it's completely different from intercounty to club. And when you have, us now, we'll have 5 or 6 defenders coming back with us. They're tackling hard at intercounty level, and then they come back to club, and it seems to be a different rule altogether. But on a whole, absolutely. But it's hard to define it as well, because the game is played at such a high pace. It's hard to put it into words. And then, in fairness to referees, they're making a decision, as Barry said earlier. It's a subjective decision in a split second, so there needs to be a little bit of leniency there. I think we can do better defining it and training referees. I think there should be an onus on the GAA to put better training measures in place and get ex-players involved, to help referees understand what's actually going on in the moment. But yeah, it's definitely a frustration, yeah.
And Barry, like, even watching on, like, even if you look over the weekend of, I suppose, the Tyrone lads tackling David Clifford, there's 6 or 7 around him, then there's a scream in the face after, and you're kind of just wondering how maybe that isn't a free in that instance. And I suppose that's where people, genuinely look sometimes and are kind of beyond belief why there isn't a free given when tackles like that happen in the game. But like as David said there, it's just not clearly defined, and it is difficult at the same time.
But yeah, I saw some of that. Like, so if you bring that argument to its full conclusion, does that mean that we only have a certain amount of players allowed around an individual? You know, like, and I know maybe it was a little bit too aggressive, and I would have said it was a free. I thought it was, but like, you can't stop if someone gets slowed down and stopped, and all of a sudden you have 3, 4, 5 players in a tackle situation. Like, there's nothing in the rules to say that's automatically a free. It's not. If every player, you know, is really disciplined, that's fine. There's no issue with that. On the other side of it, if you want to talk, we say outside of Galway, if I was Jack O'Connor, if I was David Clifford, and it happened Sean O'Shea as well, and that happened me, or I was over the Kerry team, and I'd be disappointed that they allowed that happen. I think, you know, my message would have been, you know, they had to lay down a marker. And in fairness, Tyrone bullied them. And like, I was very surprised that there wasn't more engagement with the Tyrone players when they were messing with David Clifford or Sean O'Shea. The rest of the Kerry players seemed to just back off and accept it. And I would have been, if I was Jack O'Connor, outside of the loss, that's the problem, that's the area that really would have disappointed me, because it has happened in Kerry now. Paul, I'm not sure we were even born back 2003, you know, 2005, 2008. They, you know, same situation, different players. Tyrone aggressive, surrounding players in their face, screaming, and Kerry allowed it happen. And again, they allowed it happen last weekend. And I'd say they'll be saying, come championship, that happens again, then there could be different consequences, because you can't allow that to happen. But yeah, from my point of view, I think inter-county refs manage it a good bit better, and that's not to put a slight on the club refs, because that's a very difficult job as well. It looks like that if you've an opportunity to play the ball and you don't play it, then it's nearly open season on you, in that refs allow a little bit more contact. Now, if you receive a hand pass, and you go, and in your next play there's a bit of contact, they're nearly trying to give the free then. But if you receive a hand pass, you beat a player, you have an opportunity to kick it or hand pass, and you don't, I think then refs allow a little bit more contact and say, you had the opportunity to play it, you didn't. It's now kind of open season to try and dispossess you and put a little bit more contact on you. But again, as David said, it's difficult, and it's very hard to actually, you know, it's not basketball. You can't say there's absolutely no contact, because we wouldn't accept that. But where does the line in the sand? Where is the line in the sand drawn?
I'd agree with you on that, Barry. Actually, so for example, if there's a turnover, you know, so say Galway are attacking, Monaghan turn them over, or there's a bad hand pass and the Monaghan player gets it, and he's then breaking out, regardless of the actual tackle. Say there's 2 Galway lads around him, they stand around, the tackle is fine. The referee's generally more inclined to give that a free because of the flow of the game. And I think that's probably one of the biggest frustrations, you know, that it shouldn't matter that the ball had just been turned over, and, you know, now the Monaghan crowd are up. You know, what that should be judged on essentially is, you know, the tackle, you know. So okay, the Galway men turn it over, but if they stand them up and still tackle correctly, it should still be a free in, essentially, you know what I mean? And I know when I'm watching games, that is a little bit frustrating. And the same at the other side, I think. You know, if you get a short kick out, essentially, and as you said, you break 2 tackles and the opportunity is to play the ball and he doesn't, you know, and then you know, he gets himself into a tackle or something like that, you know, the referee nearly gives the free in, because he's going, okay, he should have moved it on, when that's really not relevant in the moment. You know?
I think there's a job for
Barry,
you,
is this the biggest thing?
I'll be your lines member.
Jesus.
Is this the biggest thing that needs to be tied up now, Barry?
The tackle.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's a loaded question.
Is there something else that you see that needs to be tied up more?
Jesus, that's a good one. I think the consistent fouling is an issue, actually, more so than the actual tackle. So, you know, Con Kilpatrick from Tyrone must have fouled, he definitely had 8 fouls against Galway, and there was no action taken, and that's happening. So, like, no, I'll phrase this, but it's the persistent tackling by teams to slow down the opposition. I think that's a bigger issue. So I'll take Roscommon, for example, and well within their rights. It was a very deliberate ploy, and Tyrone, I thought, to a certain extent as well, and probably most teams when you think about it, that if Galway turned the ball over full back or cornerback or within the 45, we say the Galway defending 45, closest to Galway goal, the nearest Roscommon player just went and fouled the Galway fella because it gave them an opportunity to go back. So they didn't want Galway breaking. They didn't want Sean Kelly just going on a run, galloping up the pitch. Stop it dead. Give Roscommon loads of time to get players back, and you build from there. And that's happening over and over again. And you're seeing it. And believe me, where, you mentioned about, our management going to guys saying, look, if there's any contact, go down. They're not doing that. That's an individual thing if someone does that. Our management going to teams saying, stop it at source, take a foul, take a hit. Absolutely. At 100%. And they're giving, it's just slowing it down because that's all they want. All they want is just to give 2 or 3 seconds for guys to get back, to get into position, to get defensively set. And I think that's a bigger issue. So it mightn't be, the letter of the law, black card, you're pulling a guy down, but there's a huge amount of cynicism in it that if you're breaking the momentum of a team deliberately, to me, that's the biggest problem that we're facing at the moment, because it'll happen. So one of the teams that'll do it will be successful. And as we do in the GAA, we're all guilty of it. Everyone else will just copy it. So they'll see, Team X will go and win the All-Ireland. And the reason they do it is because every time Sean Kelly got a turnover, they just fouled him. And all of a sudden, every single time my Cullen are playing, every single time they're playing a club game and Sean Kelly gets the ball, he'll be fouled because we copy. And I think at the moment that would be a huge problem for me.
Do you see that as an issue as well, David? Like, even when Barry's talking there, you're nearly thinking of players who almost make a foul. They'll drag the player to the ground, but they'll drag the player lightly, so maybe it doesn't look as bad to the referees.
Yeah, Barry's 100% right. Yeah, he's 100% right. But again, it's on the GAA, right? Because players and management are just going out to win, and they're going to play to the rules. And as Barry said, copycat culture is definitely in. You'll see a lot of teams in Galway this year setting up with the 2-man sweeper, I'd say, after Galway, after watching Galway in the league and in the championship this year, and that's just the way that's just natural. That's what happens. So it has to come in at the top, and I've heard a lot of people giving out about the standard of games and how it's so boring, etc. But again, that onus isn't on players or management whatsoever. Their sole focus is to go out and win games, and they will do whatever they have to do tactically to try and achieve that goal. So it has to come from top level, and it needs to be done. It needs to be done smartly and consistently, across the board, or else it's just not going to make an impact. I don't have the answer. Is it something?
I think a directive. This is only again me thinking out loud. Is that the advantage rule has to be so. Say, hypothetically, David Wynne wins the ball back from my Cullen. Someone goes to foul him, and instead of the referee blowing the whistle straight away, and then the player that's after fouling David just standing in front of him, giving another couple of seconds, that there's a directive to say, look, David, if you can go and break that tackle, I'll give you a little bit extra. So instead of fouling for free, I'll give you another couple of seconds, another step or two to really push on and try and break that tackle, and then you're out, and it's not slowing things down for free. And I think we have to try and get that into the game rather than just, foul, stop, everyone back, foul, stop, everyone back. Let's give the players, let's Pádraig Joyce say to Jack Lynn and these guys, say, look, in training, we're going to really coach you that when someone is trying to foul you, you're in the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week, use it,
your legs.
Really push, really go through, but that a ref allows that. So he doesn't say, well, you actually took 5 steps there to free in. They say, look, I'm not saying rewrite the rule book. I'm just saying a bit of common sense. If a referee sees that a team is consistently fouling to break the flow of the opposition team, then allow the cornerbacks, allow the fullback, the wingback time to break the tackle, so it negates any impact that the player that's fouling the man can have.
And really, like, the onus would probably come more on a linesman than a referee, because if you imagine, Galway turn the ball over, Sean Kelly kick passes it to Paul Conroy, he's moving forward. The referee is watching the ball. He's watching Paul Conroy move forward. But really, where this is an issue is your Jack Glynn or your own Kelly trying to break from corner back, and the corner forward, grabbing onto his jersey or putting his hands on his chest. So I don't know, is it a thing you need more eyes, or you need the linesman to be focusing off the play rather than actually focusing on the play?
Just on that, because we have went down a bit of a referee loophole here, but one thing on that, David, we haven't mentioned it, but it was a team across the league at the weekend, and it probably has been a team, if you look back at key games in the last few years, steps. You're seeing players get the ball now and ultimately take 6 or 7 steps at different stages during games.
Yeah. Like, again, I don't know, how do you combat that? You know what I mean? Are you going to have a linesman count every time a player gets the ball, counting steps? I personally don't see an issue with, if it's out the middle of the field and he takes 6 steps, and then he plays the ball and there's no contact. Where they need to be harsh on that is, when it's coming into the scoring zone, he's trying to go around a man and he's using 2 or 3 steps to separate himself. Right? That's really where it's an issue. This crack of pulling a video from Twitter of some fella just getting but you see it in the NBA all the time. There's videos up of, that was a travel because he held the ball in the palm of his hand. And these are referees probably getting paid hundreds of thousands, and they're not seeing it. So I don't think it's realistic to, every time someone takes 6 steps, think that the referees are going to see that and call a foul against it. There should be focus, of course, the closer to goal that it gets, or even when you're breaking out as a defender, if there's tackles on, if there's pressure on, and you're using it to your advantage, you need to play the ball. But if you're standing on your own in the middle of the field and you take 6 steps instead of 5, that's getting a bit, I think, as Barry said earlier, there's definitely bigger things to focus on.
Yeah, and it probably does in one sense, like a couple of these issues, because David has referenced there, Barry, they definitely probably do.
Can I? Yeah, I'll jump in by you there, Paul. And again, this goes back to the guys that are highlighting this, right? I can guarantee you, absolutely 100%, that in the All-Ireland final this year, if Damien Comer, if it's level at the last kick of the game, and Damien Comer takes 5 steps to get a shot off, and the referee pulls him for 5 steps, the same people who are now highlighting the issue with steps will then come down on the referee for implementing the rules and not acting with a bit of common sense. That's just the way it is, and that's just the way that these things work. So it is a common sense thing. Like, if someone obviously takes a load of steps, they should be pulled. If someone takes 5 steps to try and break a tackle and keep going, is that a free? Yeah, maybe by the definition of it, it's a free, but there has to be a little bit of leeway. And there's so much pressure on refs now. It's an absolute thankless job. And I actually think the standard of refereeing is, particularly inter-county level, and a lot of the club refs as well, is actually really, really high. In Galway, we're really lucky that we have some really top quality, young, up and coming refs. I'm not going to name them because I'll forget some of them, but like, we know who they are. And
what is the actual rule? Is it 4 or 5?
4. It's 4 steps. I do think that could be changed to make things. You're fond enough of the steps yourself now, David. So he certainly wasn't going to go down that rabbit hole. But I think a time is probably an easier one for a ref. So, like, if fucking Clydesdale like me takes 4 steps, the ref is going to, or 6 steps, the ref is going to see it. But if Jack Glynn takes 6 steps, is the ref going to see it? No. But if we can look at it more of a time sensitive rather than step sensitive, I think might be a better approach to it.
Just on that, before we get back in, just to go his final 2 games, just The club team of the year was named there during the week. 2 Galway men named Sean
Rob.
Kelly and
Kim's
Shane Walsh of Chemical Growth.
This is
David,
this is your chance now, David.
Yeah.
Were you surprised you didn't get more players on the team?
Jeez, Paul.
Were you surprised you weren't on it yourself?
I was shocked. Yeah.
Here's
My
your
mother-
chance now.
Yeah. No, my mother was very disappointed. I know. Listen, it's like anything. You know what I mean. The 2 teams that are in the final are going to get the lion's share. So, we've no qualms about it. Desi was on to me. All right, he was wondering did they see the Westport game, but anyway, that was about it.
What did you think seeing the team, Barry?
I haven't seen it, Paul. I'll be honest with you. I saw. I did see that Sean Kelly was the only Mike Cullen player. I'm not sure who did Kilmacud beat in the semi-final.
Kearns O'Reilly's.
Kearns O'Reilly.
I
think they got one.
Yeah. So look, that's always going to happen. They could have looked at, did someone have a really, really good provincial campaign and maybe didn't go and win it, maybe, but I don't think. I would imagine that David had a poor night's sleep, but he's the first night, but I think he's probably over it at this stage.
I'm over it.
With that Galway's final 2 games, Armagh the day after Paddy's Day up in the Athletic Grounds, and then Kerry to finish in Pearse Stadium. David, we were talking earlier on about Galway system, and maybe Armagh and Kerry are the perfect 2 teams for this because they both are kicking teams when they get the ball in attack. So it can definitely, I suppose, tell supporters and probably tell Galway where they're at probably after these 2 games.
Yeah. I think these will definitely be a good stress test for the system. Because I think Kerry and Armagh will obviously have looked at Galway, looked at how they set up, and I'd imagine identified, the only way to really create 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 opportunity is to move the ball as quick as possible in transition. So if Galway are turning the ball over, dropping the ball short, I'd imagine there'll be a lot of kick passing from Armagh, from Kerry out to midfield and try and get it into that 2 dangerous full forward lines as quick as possible before Galway can set up and protect that D. So it'll be interesting because it'll be interesting to see how Galway can get back in those situations. Now, the last day against Monaghan, I was impressed. They see between Johnny Heaney, John Daly, and Shawnee, they have a really good understanding. Most teams now, when the other team gets set up, they will have a quarterback at the top of the D. But Galway seem to have a +1 and a quarterback nearly at all stages, and they seem to rotate that really well as John Daly or Sean Kelly or Johnny Heaney want to attack and break through. So I think it'll be a good stress test going into the summer. Yeah.
Particularly as well, Barry, Robert Finnerty returned against Monaghan. Shane Walsh got a bit of action in the second half the last day. Damien Comer to be back for Kerry. To get these players, particularly in attack, to get them back into the setup and get more game time into them will be key.
Yeah, it'll certainly be one of the key factors in the games, in the 2 games. It'll be trying to get as close, particularly for the Kerry game, trying to get as close to your first 15 for championship as possible, and seeing how they evolve and seeing what sort of form they show, and even for the likes of Owen Kelly, we know how good he has played. Cathal Sweeney, we know how good he has played. It'd be really important for them to see how they can react when we've a full setup and how good they can be when you've your best 15 out there, and I think that's really, really important. But for me, there's a couple of other aspects of it, is that the experience of playing in the athletic grounds is in that it'll be intimidating. They love it up there. They don't want to get bet up there. That's brilliant. Whether win or lose, that experience is going to be very, very important for Galway this year. And Kerry, like, we don't know, Kerry could come to Galway the last league game really needing a win to avoid relegation, and that will be a big test for them as well. But another aspect of it is you know, one of Armagh's most important players is Ethan Rafferty in goal. You know, it'll be a good experience for the Galway management to see how they can set up to curb his influence, and what sort of system they can come up with to do that. Or on the flip side of it, what happens if a team comes up with something different? And Armagh, Kieran McGeeney has been noted to do it. You know, what happens if, for example, someone goes and man marks John Daly? So instead of every single time Galway looking to recycle the ball, it goes through John Daly's hands. What happens if someone says, you know what, actually, we're going to take that option out? Now, it might mean that it goes through someone else's hands, but at least, because you think of Galway training sessions, John Daly's so influential, that's the way they're going to be playing, that's the way they're going to train. So what happens if someone does something like that? So instead of they get 13, 14 behind the ball, and they put one person sitting on John Daly, who actually steps up then to become that, as you said, David, that quarterback when Galway are going down the right-hand side or going down the left-hand side, it gets clogged up, they try to recycle, they try to go across the pitch. Inevitably, the ball is in the hands of John Daly or Paul Conroy. What happens, as I said, if someone does that? And hopefully, Kerry or Armagh will test Galway, and they'll give them something to think about, and Galway will then have to react, and it'll be a huge learning process for them, because at the end of the day, the league is a means to an end, and the Galway's year will be fully judged on their run in the championship. And you know, it'll be a huge experience for them. The two games really, really important, and they'll just be hoping that they get really, really good learnings from them. They'll want wins, but if they don't get them, they'll be still looking for what are the positives out of it.
Dave jumped up into the second after the weekend, just ahead of Roscommon on goal difference now. Both teams still on 6 points. David, do you think now Galway in some way they're towards the top of this table, not fully safe yet, just with how tight things are at the bottom? But should a league final now be a possibility for this team? Because you're looking at it in the Connacht Championship, it's Mayo Roscommon first round, so Galway do have that buy into the semi-final, and it is a bit of a break they'll have after the league. But do you think they'll be aiming now for a league final when they look at the table?
Oh, 100%, yeah. I'd be very surprised if Pádraig isn't, doesn't have one eye on that, absolutely. You know, because if you could get 3 games in a row now, say Armagh, Kerry, and then a league final, you know, that's 3 really, really good games. And, you know, he's developed a panel now, Barry mentioned Cathal Sweeney, Daniel O'Flaherty. I thought Johnny McGrath was excellent the last day as well. You know, so the more games that he can get for those guys, and even with Shaney, you know, coming back now, the more game time you can get into him before a Connacht semi-final against Mayo or Roscommon. And as well as that, you know, winning is a habit. If you could win a national title, Galway's first Division 1, I think I read, would it be 40 years or something like that? You know, that'd absolutely that'd be a great boost for the group going into championship. Yeah, so I'd say Pádraig has one eye on it. Obviously, at the minute, priority is Armagh, trying to get a result there, and then obviously Kerry. But it'd be great, I think, for the group and for supporters if we could get to a league final. Absolutely, yeah.
And Barry, a chance for a lot of the players who, and ultimately the squad who were defeated to Kerry to get back to Croke Park, like that. I suppose chance of silverware early on in the year in Croke Park, like it's not going to do the squad any harm, and particularly when they're not out in championship straight after. I suppose like last year you had the Division 2 final, and then Galway playing Mayo fairly soon after that last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And as David said, winning is a habit, and if they could get to Croke Park and win, that'll be a big, big boost for Galway. Now, there's caveats to say I'm not sure they'd like to play Mayo in a league final, particularly the fact Mayo would probably have to, by virtue of the fact they're playing the following week, they would have to put out their second string team. So, you know, does it really kind of you know, is there any real relevance in a game like that? Then I think that's probably, no, look, that's, you know, Mayo could say, do you know what, we're going to go hell for leather. Who knows? I'm not sure. And the fact, like, Galway would then, if they got Mayo in a league final, they would then have played Mayo in the FBD. They'd have played Mayo in the group stage of the league, a league final, and then possibly have to face them in the championship as well. Four times before May is probably a lot to face Mayo in 1 year. But I think overall, if you said to Pádraig now, you know, do you want to kind of bow out of the league safe mid-table, or do you want to go on and win it? He'd bite your hand off if he said go on and win it. I think if we could have a big win in Croke Park, I think it's invaluable to that team and invaluable to the younger members of the team. And even for the likes of Shane to have gone on and won an All-Ireland club, like, they're big achievements, big moments, and big confidence boosters, big energizing moments within a group. And a league final win would certainly be, it'd certainly top off a really good year. And yeah, I think it was 1983 was our last one, so they don't come too often.
This podcast is sponsored by Steede Motor Group, Claregalway, supplying a wide variety of new and used vehicles. steedemotorgroup.ie, taking the work out of car shopping. We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job.